3% growth. Is this a sustainable pace? Could we get back there with the right policy mix?
No, there's nothing in policy that would raise the growth rate. Nobody. You could make me total dictator and do everything I believe would work, and it still wouldn't get you up by more than a few tenths of a percentage point.
Plausible increase in economic growth would go nearly far enough to extend these programs indefinitely. And you saw the Secretary duck that question. These projections of 3% economic growth per year are absurd projections.
Can you get growth over 3% in this country?
Probably not. I would take the under on that. I would take the under.
That's interesting, given that, of course, the president has said repeatedly all he wants to do is get over 3%. In fact, thinks he can ultimately get to 4%. You think that's not even possible?
Well, you know how good economists are at forecasting, and I'm an economist.
The Trump administration clearly has GDP growth on its mind.
3% growth in an American economy is to some people an absurd assumption. It used to be normal.
I think we can absolutely get to sustain 3 to 4% GDP.
We're bringing it from 1% up to 4%, and I actually think we can go higher than 4%. I think you can go to 5 or 6%.
President Trump came out with his vision for the U.S. budget. Sure, it comes with big increases on spending for defense and infrastructure at the cost of hundreds of billions of dollars of cuts to welfare programs and the safety net. But beyond these line items, budget documents highlight a president's priorities and assumptions they make about our future. And this budget assumes a lot. Tax cuts and deregulation that push economic growth to 3% a year, except that America's economy grew by just 1.6% back in 2016. And the Congressional Budget Office only forecasts growing to as high as 1.9% by 2021. So how is it that Trump is planning to double our economic output? He assumes that lowering taxes on the wealthy and big business will trickle down to the rest of Americans and benefit us all. Well, this was tried under President Reagan, and history shows it did not work out that way. More importantly, demographic trends are working against the president's thesis. It's true, we did see 3% annual growth back in the 90s, but we also had higher productivity and labor participation rates back then. Today is much different. America's labor force has shrunk since the last recession, and with a 4% jobless rate, we're at what economists call full employment. So where would we even find enough new workers to get to 3%? Immigration would help, except this president's message to future immigrants is to stay home. Assumptions are assumptions, but assuming 3% growth is just pie in the sky.
And you mentioned the 3%. Is that a realistic number? Because when President Trump came out with his budget, lots of folks seem to say that's a big stretch.
I got to say, I think it is a really big stretch. You know, I mean, it's nice to say we're going to do it, but if you're going to reduce the workforce by reducing immigration and by throwing out workers who are already here, we just don't have enough people in the economy to grow it that fast, to grow the economy that fast without running out of workers. And we already see that happen.
I think the impact on growth is going to be, quite a bit smaller than that, because it's stretched out over time, and there are also probably not very high multipliers, but we still are assuming a tax cut.
Is that enough to get the administration to the 3% GDP it's looking at?
We're not expecting 3%. We're at about 2.25%.
Do you think it's achievable for us, based on all the things that you see right now, to even achieve a 3% growth?
So I think it's something that would be wonderful if you can accomplish it. I'd love to see it. I think it's challenging.